AskReddit by Cutage earlier. What is the most terrifying true story you are aware of? First thing that comes to mind is Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. They basically built a torture room in a cabin and would do things like kill an entire family except for the mom and then make her comply with sexual requests thinking she'll see her kid again, etc. Fuck, that's disgusting. I've never heard of that story. There was a made-for-TV movie with Sally Field, based on true events, probably in the early 90s. She's running errands before her daughter's birthday party and talking on the phone with her daughter who remained at home. During their conversation, a man entered her home, raped and killed her daughter. She heard everything and could do nothing about it. I saw this probably 15 years before I became a parent, and even then I knew that that was my worst nightmare. 14 years after I became a parent, I still think about the horror of that or any similar situation and become paralyzed. An eye for an eye. Still traumatized from that movie. Joyce Vincent, an English woman whose death went unnoticed for more than 2 years as her corpse lay undiscovered at her flat in North London. TV and eating still running, surrounded by wrapped Christmas for people who never received them. No one noticed she was gone. She was only 38. I think of her often. While it's not traditionally scary in the same way as serial killers, horrible accidents and other awful situations in this thread, but terrifying that one day you could go and no one even notices. I know about this story and it's just so sad. To lay undiscovered for 2 years plus, what a sad way to go. And they say she came from a good family who thought she had cut them off for good. The guy who followed bears for years in the wild then got eaten by one when then ate his GF too. Timothy Treadwell. Dumbus. I had a co-worker that sneezed hard enough to dislocate his kneecap. Doctor told him it's actually not that uncommon. This is not something I ever expected to learn. Isn't the human body crazy at times? The Nutty Putty Cave incident. A man got trapped in a tiny passageway upside down, and after 27 hours of rescue attempts he died of cardiac arrest and the cave was sealed forever with him still inside. John Jones. Hello Kitty murder. A woman was abducted for stealing a wallet and tortured and raped for several days. Once she died from her injuries, they cut her up and put her head in a Hello Kitty stuffed animal. Clolol. I cannot remember the name of it, but there was some unsolved murder in Germany, I think, where some kid and his parent were at a festival, and the kid wandered away from his parent and like 10 minutes later was found murdered and partly cannibalized under a bridge, which makes absolutely no sense considering how short he was missing and how crowded the area was. I wish I could remember the name of the incident. This one. Murder of Tristan Brubach. https://en.m.wikipedea.org/wiki/murder_f_tristan_br%c3%bc bar ? Definitely crazy. He was seen at 3:20 alive and well, found dead and seemingly partly cannibalized by 5:08 p.m. 108 minutes from disappearance to the police being informed of his body being found. Unsolved 26 years later. My mom was driving at night when a man suddenly appeared in the road, causing her to stop to avoid hitting him. In the darkness, 3 more men emerged from the surrounding woods and tried to open the car doors. Fortunately, she had locked the doors and was able to quickly drive to the nearest town. Always remember to lock your car doors as soon as you start the engine. If her doors hadn't been locked, the situation could have been much worse. I'm surprised that some people drive with their doors unlocked. When I see those police chase videos, suspects easily open random car doors and carjack lol. It's honestly insane. Just thinking about what the people trapped in the Twin Towers, particularly the North Tower, went through. They were already dead once the plane hit, And having to choose between burning to death or falling to death over 100 stories never fails to freak me out if I think about it too much. I've seen some of the perpetrated footage and photos with human remains scattered around the streets from the jumpers. Poor people. I wonder sometimes what my choice would have been in that situation. There's a lot, but one that comes to mind. Samantha Koenig, from Alaska, who got abducted from her coffee shop job. Then the ransom picture the killer took of her and sent it to her family in newspapers. She was already dead in the photo. The killer sewed her eyes open and put makeup on her and propped her up for the photo. The whole story is really terrifying to me. Israel Keys. He was responsible for many more murders than he revealed once he was caught. He died without spilling the rest of them, and he's a suspect in many cases. Junko Furuta. I often think about her. That poor young girl had her whole life ahead of her. The word evil doesn't begin to describe what those pieces of filth did to her. They should have been tortured to death in exactly the same way they did it to her. Being a kid left by my mom at the checkout in a grocery store to get something last minute, and the cashier is almost done scanning all our purchases. My mum used to always forget her purse and used to leave me there with the trolley panicking, not sure what I thought the shop workers would do. The Toy Box Murders. I desperately wish I'd never read the transcript. Absolutely, utterly, desperately wish I could go back to a time when I had never read those words. Joseph Fritzl and his daughter Elizabeth Fritzl. He basically locked her in his secret basement for years without his family knowing and continuously raped and impregnated her. She gave birth to 7 of his children. She was later found and he was arrested. James Bird and his brother were family friends. They came over to parties my mom would throw. He was dragged to death in Jasper, TX by 2 white supremacists. If you're old enough, you probably remember it making national news. Good grief, this one is horrific. This must hit home for you, I'm so sorry. And one of the scumbags who did it is due for release in 2038. The other 2 were killed by lethal injection. Shame. I firmly believe that anyone who tortures someone to death should be killed in the same way. My mom often told a story of the time she was walking home alone at night and someone pulled up to give her a ride. She remembers him being very handsome and charming at first, but his demeanor changed quickly when my mom refused to get in the car with him. Fortunately, he gave up and left my mom alone. Anyway, years my mom forgets about the encounter, but then see Ted Bundy in the news. She's not a 100% sure that it was him that night, but the timing does seem to fit. Fuck, so many redditors have moms who almost got in a car with Ted Bundy. The sinking of the wallship Essex and the survival of its crew of being lost for 90+ days, having to resort to cannibalism to survive, and of the 20-man crew only 8 would return home to tell their tale, with the first mate writing an account of the loss of the Essex upon his return, and years later the cabin boy, all grown up, writing his own account. A copy of the account by the first mate would soon find itself in the hands of Herman Melville, and that is how Melville was inspired to write Moby Dick. The Golden State Killer. So wild he was hiding in plain sight all these years. About 3 miles from where I live. He had a towel over his computer screen when they searched his house. Same way he used to put a towel over TVs to dim the light when he was in people's houses. Mary Vincent, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Mary. Hitchhiking in the 1970s. Picked up by absolute sadist. Stabbed and raped her and cut off both her arms before throwing her into a ravine. She survived. She managed to climb up the cliff face, with no arms, and get help. She's an astoundingly courageous, strong woman. Sick bastard only served 8 years before it was released. Happily, it died of cancer on death row following another murder. May it burn eternally in the hottest parts of hell. My favorite murder has a really good episode about this. I was walking home from my judo training, It was night and nothing happened on the road. I live in a village, but not even a few minutes after I arrived I get an alert on my phone that a bear has been spotted right on a road I walked. Now I get chills because just imagine what could have happened if I would have left just a bit earlier. Shoulder hit him with the Asoto Gari. The Japanese invasion of Nanking. While woodworking in school, my friend was doing some dumb shit with a saw and a file, and after a few moments the file broke off and flied barely past my head at least 100 km/h, scraping my head a little. The terror I felt the second I had realized what happened. Barry Williams. Convicted spree killer very nearly went on a second rampage fueled by his paranoid schizophrenia because British cops forgot they were supposed to keep an eye on him. Immediately after WWII, the girls who were friends of German soldiers were killed on the island next to our village.